I know the comments on this video are going to be abysmal, so I'm just going to start off by saying some of you, regardless of what I say, will continue to demonize refugees after this video. So frankly, this isn't for you because of your biases. You're not going to change. But this video is for people who are unsure and are on the fence and have heard a lot of conflicting different things and want to understand why the UK-Rwanda deal is just the worst, stupidest, and inhumane deal we could have done. So for some context, because my audience is primarily American, the UK-Rwanda deal is that the UK is planning on sending asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda, Rwanda being in Africa, and the UK being, where the UK is, for processing and to face their asylum-seeking period in Rwanda. And the UK are doing this because, well, there's no real reason why they're going to say it's, to help prevent trafficking. They'll say it's better for the UK economy, etc., when in actuality, it probably is just a ploy by the UK government to distract us from their multiple times of breaking laws. The Prime Minister has broken several laws over the COVID lockdowns. Our Chancellor of the Exchequer, so I'm not exactly sure what the American equivalent is. Economy guy, basically. His wife is a non-dom, so there's some tax issues there. He had a US green card, which he shouldn't really be having as a politician in the UK, and he also broke lockdown rules as well. But moving on from that, those are just the things they're trying to distract us from, and also just try and shore up votes from people who voted for slightly more right-wing, potentially far-right parties in the UK. They're trying to shore up their votes because they've seen that polls at the moment are showing a very, very bad election result in 2024 for them. So why is this deal with the UK and Rwanda so bad economically and also humanitarianly? Well, let's go off Australia as an example. Australia set up a similar thing recently because Australia is where they would send asylum seekers to be processed off on an island somewhere. Australia spent millions of dollars, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, setting up this process, which has cost them, I think, approximately 8 times more than it would have cost them to just process asylum seekers in Australia for starts. And in doing so, Australia wasted a lot of money. And even though they set up this entire system, they have barely processed any refugees. They processed, I think, about 3,000 using this new process, which I think is being or has been scrapped. And then the UK government were like, well, look, Australia spent significant amounts of money doing this thing and processing about 3,000 people. We're going to do the exact same thing and process 20,000 people, and it's not going to cost us anything. And you're like, that doesn't make sense, just numbers-wise. And also, the UK government have paid Rwanda 125 million pounds. Now, people were under the perception that, the 125 million pounds is just what we're paying Rwanda to do this. It's not. That's just an initial sweetener to give to Rwanda, basically being like, hey guys, here's 120 million pounds. That does not factor in the costs of the UK actually, sending people from the UK to Rwanda. It's not going to cover the costs of what the UK may be paying Rwanda in the future for this process. Some people are saying, mostly humanitarian organizations are saying that this is going to cost the UK 1.4 billion pounds at the very least, which is significantly higher than any sort of deal that is worthwhile for the UK, just from a purely numbers perspective as it is. Speaking more about numbers, I'm sure there's going to be some people typing furiously in the comments, yeah, well, it's going to save us money, the economy, the economic, the immigrants come here, they're stealing everything. No, that's let's break that down. So approximately 4% of migrants that come to the UK, and that's not asylum seekers only, that is all migrants, take benefits. 4%. 14% of Brits take benefits. And obviously they are British, so they are taking benefits. But if you're looking at that number in comparison, significantly smaller amount does that. Furthermore, if you want to be complaining about people coming here and taking money from the UK, well then I would actually recommend you focus in on the international companies that come to the UK and use tax loopholes to not pay taxes that they owe the UK, which costs the UK significantly more than the benefits that asylum seekers claim. I feel like those are the people you should be blaming, not the people fleeing war-torn countries. Moving on from that, a 2016 EU study actually showed that dependent on integration policies, that long-term, within 9 to 19 years, refugees prove to be an economic surplus to what you spend on bringing them in and integrating them. So in the long term, they're only going to help our economy grow and get better. All the links to resources and stuff will be in the description down below. And then we move on from these economic things to the humanitarian perspective, because we've already shown that this deal doesn't make sense for us, the British public, because, well, the money isn't coming to us. Oh, and also actually tied into the humanitarian aspect and the economic aspect, people will say, oh, well, we're putting them in homes and hotels and things, but, you know, that's paid for eventually. Like, that, the hotels and the councils and stuff, where the councils decide where they're putting people. The refugees, again, do not decide where they are put. They do not say, hello, I am here, put me in the Marriott Hotel. No, local councils, local authorities generally decide where they put asylum seekers. These companies are being paid. It's not unpaid for. These British companies, well, hopefully mostly British companies, are being paid, and then they're taxed, which will then, you know, go on to be used for other things. So these companies aren't losing money. They are being paid and then being taxed for that. And again, refugees and asylum seekers do not choose where they are living. And someone will bring up the idea of the barracks that were said to be inhumane and inhabitable. Yes, because they were. And talking about things that are potentially inhumane, listen, this is going to come across as me bashing Rwandans. No, Rwandans are probably lovely people. However, the Rwandan government has a history of not treating asylum seekers well. There was a report in 2019 from the US that showed that Rwanda's human rights, especially towards refugees, is extremely questionable. So now the UK is deciding to export people, and that's what they're basically doing, exporting, like it is trade, to Rwanda to potentially face inhumane conditions. Again, this is not a slight against Rwandans, this is the Rwandan government and how they have treated refugees in the past. And the UK will simply be taking people fleeing from a war-torn country and sending them to another country where they may face poor living conditions, maybe even poorer living conditions. And again, there was a fantastic piece where Edelray was interviewing Minister Pergrove, I hope I got that name right, and asked him, would you go and live in Rwanda? And he wouldn't answer. He is the minister, one of the ministers in charge of this whole ordeal, if you will. And he just refused to answer Edelray. And, you know, what can you expect from a Tory minister just towing the line of Priti Patel? Oh my God. So yes, Rwanda's just human rights record when it comes to refugees isn't great, and so you're just sending refugees to a place with a human rights record isn't very good. So what else is inhumane? That the UN even said that this deal law is inhumane and actually breaks international law? Well, this is going to address another thing that I'm sure a lot of people in the comments are frantically typing, yeah, well, they're illegal immigrants, blah, 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 they're coming here illegally. That's generally not what an illegal immigrant is. There's a difference between a refugee and an illegal immigrant. Actually, a US study showed that most illegal immigrants are just people who have overstayed their visa, or people who have a visa which tell them they can work X amount of hours and they work more hours, either deliberately or accidentally. That's generally what makes up the majority of illegal immigrants, especially in the US. In the UK, studies like that haven't been fully conducted, but looking into it, yeah, you probably get more people like that who are technically illegal immigrants just because they've overstayed work visas. Asylum seekers aren't that. People coming to the UK by any means isn't them being illegal immigrants, that's them seeking asylum, because there's nothing in the Refugee Convention that says how you can seek asylum. And also, before people say, first safe country, that's not how asylum seeking works. You can go to any country you choose. You do not have to go to the first safe country. That is people misinterpreting an EU law, the Dublin regulation, where EU countries can decide to send refugees back to what would have been the first safe country. But even in the UK, we're scrapping that because we've left the EU. We've got the National Borders Bill, and the National Borders Bill is supposed to, and I've read the National Borders Bill, I'm going to put it in the comments, the description down below. You are supposed to adhere to the Refugee Convention because the UK is a signatory of the Refugee Convention. It is in the law in itself. I believe it might be Clause 6 of the Lord's rewrite of the law. So it's breaking international law because it is preventing refugees seeking refuge. And people saying, well, just take a plane or something, or claim asylum before you get here. That's not how it works in the UK. In the UK, for the most part, you need to be in the UK to do in-person interviews and stuff to be able to seek asylum. And it actually says on government websites, as soon as you enter the UK, then go and seek asylum. Because you generally can't do it abroad. They have made an exception for Ukrainians over the past month or 2 months, but even that they have handled very poorly in the UK. But again, you need to be in the UK mostly to seek asylum. And saying, oh, well, they have to take a plane, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you are expecting that the only refugees that should be acceptable for us are people who have the means to get on a plane, people who still have their passports, people who still have the ability to get onto a plane, to pay for a plane. And then you'll say, oh, well, they're paying the smugglers. Well, you don't know how much the difference is between a plane ticket and getting a passport and getting visas and getting claimants to get onto planes, and how the availability of getting onto a plane is in the middle of a war-torn country is. We don't know that. I certainly don't. I've not been in a war-torn country trying to get into an airport to get somewhere, let alone being in a war-torn country potentially with little to no money and no passport to get somewhere. It is just obscene to think of that and seem to have that as your thought process. So people seeking asylum by means of seeking asylum is not illegal. They are not illegally doing this. This is a term that has been used by the Conservative Party and people who are further right than the Conservative Party to demonize and otherize refugees and basically say, look, they are illegals. They are aliens, to dehumanize them to you so you think, yeah, they're illegal, they're aliens, they shouldn't be here. It's all just really good in the sense that it's worked well way of demonizing people. That's exactly what it is. These are refugees, these are asylum seekers. And then people who will say, well, why are they coming to the UK? Go to the next country. Yes, the majority of refugees go to the countries right next to them. I will put up stats from the UN here. The UN Refugee Data app is actually a really good app which has all the data and it breaks it down by country, and I think it's regularly updated. So, there you have it. the UK-Rwanda bill doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint and a humanitarian standpoint, because economically it costs the UK a lot of money and is probably going to not really benefit Rwanda all that much, because £120 million to also house refugees in Rwanda, and then, hopefully pay to improve Rwanda's current treatment of refugees. £120 million isn't going to cover that. And we don't really know how much the UK is going to be regularly paying Rwanda. But £125 million for a country is not a lot of money, especially if the money is there to be improving Rwanda, to be able to take more people coming into Rwanda and to improve Rwanda's state of being in general. £120 million is nothing for Rwanda. And for the UK, spending up to £1.4 billion a year on top of giving the money to Rwanda, as well as paying for other things, paying for the military to do more work on the coast, is not feasible. And also the economics of migrants coming here and taking money is minuscule compared to several other things that plagues the UK. Furthermore, the refugees long-term will be a benefit to the UK's economy. Finally, from a humanitarian perspective, the deal goes against international law and goes against UK law, because the National Borders Bill says that we have to adhere to the Refugee Convention. So, there you go. That's a breakdown as to why the UK-Rwanda deal is just a terrible deal for the UK, for Rwanda, and for refugees. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. And like I said at the beginning, if you're one of those people who are clicking on this simply to be like, well, you're wrong, I hate refugees, bad, illegal immigrants, I don't care. I'm not going to change your mind, and you're not going to change mine. And it's just a bit sad that you are okay with the demonization of refugees. And that's kind of all I have to say on that. So, thanks for watching.